What if Peter Parker's restraint wasn't willpower, but survival? What if he wasn't just a mutate, but a Viltrumite? You've been holding back your whole life. Every punch pulled. Every fight ended with webbing and a clever line instead of what you actually could have done. Because you know what happens if you don't. You're the kid from Queens. You wear a homemade suit held together with hope and discount fabric glue. Your whole philosophy is restraint, but great power means protecting everyone, even the bad guys. But Viltrumites don't believe in restraint. They're the apex predators of the Invincible universe. They're near indestructible, near immortal, completely committed to conquest. That's what evolution looks like when it stops being subtle. And today, we're figuring out what happens when those genetics forcefully awaken inside a teenager who just wants to stop muggers in Forest Hills. Here's a short version. Peter's father, Richard Parker, was a Viltrumite deep cover agent assigned to Earth. He went native. The Empire executed him for it, and assumed his son died with him. They were wrong. For the first 14 years of his life, Peter Parker is a completely normal kid. He's slightly asthmatic, a little too small for his own good, and he has no idea that he's carrying alien genetics in every cell of his body. Viltrumite DNA often requires a massive physical catalyst to actually wake up and override its human counterpart. This catalyst happens on a high school field trip to Oscorp. When the radioactive spider bites Peter, it doesn't just transfer arachnid abilities. The venom attacks his nervous system. His body panics. To survive the lethal radiation, Peter's dormant Viltrumite DNA boots up, rapidly rewriting his cellular structure to keep him alive. He wakes up the next morning feeling completely different. His vision is perfect, his asthma is gone, and when he accidentally rips his bedroom door clean off its hinges, he understands immediately that this wasn't just a spider bite. He still has a spider sense. He can stick to walls, but his baseline physical stats are not just enhanced. He isn't lift a car strong. He could probably punch a hole through Earth without bruising his knuckles. So he designs his web shooters, sews a cheap suit, and hits the streets as Spider-Man. His biggest daily struggle isn't the criminals, it's the restraint, because even if he punches a mugger at 10% of his actual strength, he'll take the guy's head clean off. Every single fight is a masterclass in control. Every single night is an exercise in holding back. And he has to, because the alternative is something he can't come back from. Tony Stark sits in the Parker family living room and shows Peter the grainy YouTube video footage of him stopping a speeding car from hitting a bus. But in this timeline, the footage looks slightly different. When Peter catches a car, he doesn't just skid backward. He plants his feet. The entire front half of the 3-ton vehicle crumples into a flat sheet of metal against his palms. "You've got a heavy catch, kid," Tony says, studying Peter very carefully. "My scanners couldn't even get a proper read on your bone density. What exactly are you made of?" Peter just shrugs. "I eat a lot of protein, Mr. Stark." Tony recruits him for the airport battle in Germany. He gives him a new suit, advanced AI named Karen, and one very clear instruction: keep your distance, web them up, don't engage Cap in a fistfight. Peter steals Steve's shield exactly like he did in the original timeline. But when the combat escalates, the disparity becomes impossible to ignore. Bucky Barnes throws a punch aimed directly at Peter's chest. Peter catches it, but he doesn't realize how fragile vibranium weave and titanium actually are compared to Viltrumite density. When Peter squeezes Bucky's fist to hold him in place, the sound of tearing metal echoes across the tarmac. The hydraulic servos in Bucky's arm rupture. Bucky drops to his knees, screaming in shock, as his arm crumples under the grip of a 15-year-old kid. Sam Wilson swoops in to help. Peter leaps backwards. His Viltrumite flight hasn't fully activated yet, so he relies on his legs. He jumps so hard that he leaves a smoking crater in the runway concrete, launching himself 300 feet straight up. Tony watches from the sky. "Boss," Friday warns, "the kid's kinetic energy profile doesn't match standard enhancements. If he actually hits someone, the blunt force trauma will be instantly fatal." Tony realizes he didn't bring a street-level hero to this fight. He accidentally recruited a walking weapon of mass destruction. He immediately pulls Peter out of the melee, tells him to web people to the floor, and nothing else. Peter complies. He's ashamed that he hurt someone, more afraid of himself than he's ever been. Tony files that fear away. He doesn't say anything, but he doesn't forget it either. After the Civil War fight, Peter returns to Queens. He goes back to high school. He goes back to Ned asking him if he can summon spiders. Back to trying to act normal around MJ, while his entire body is slowly rewriting the laws of physics. This is where the psychological weight of being a Viltrumite starts isolating him. Ned catches him on the ceiling one day and asks all the classic questions. "Can you lay eggs? Do you have venom?" Peter sits on the edge of his bed, staring at his hands. "Ned, I stopped a runaway train yesterday by standing in front of it. It didn't even hurt. I feel like my skin is made of solid steel. I'm terrified I'm gonna kill someone." His entire arc in Spider-Man Homecoming shifts completely. He isn't trying to prove to Tony Stark that he's strong enough to be an Avenger. He's trying to prove to himself that he's gentle enough to be a human being. Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, isn't even a physical threat to Peter. The Chitauri tech Toomes carries as genuinely dangerous. But an alien blaster rifle against Viltrumite skin feels like a warm afternoon. The climax plays out in the abandoned warehouse. Toomes uses his mechanical wings to destroy the support pillars. A massive concrete roof drops directly onto Peter. In the original timeline, this is the lowest moment. Peter's trapped, crying, forcing himself up through pure willpower. Here, the roof collapses. A cloud of dust fills the warehouse. Toombs turns to leave. The concrete slab shatters from underneath. Peter stands up, completely unharmed. Not a scratch. Toombs stares at him. He raises his Shatari blaster and fires a plasma blast directly at Peter's chest. Peter doesn't even bother dodging. The blast deflects off of him into the ceiling. Peter walks forward. He doesn't say a word. He grabs Toombs' enormous mechanical wings and plants his feet. With one casual motion, he rips them clean off the harness. He sets the millions of dollars of alien technology on the floor like he's putting down groceries. He grabs Toombs by the collar, webs him to the wall, leaves him for the police. He had the power to rip a man apart. He chose not to. Every single time, he actively chooses not to. I mean, he's Spider-Man first. He just doesn't know yet that the universe knows his name. Okay, so you can't have a Viltrumite living on a planet without the Empire eventually finding out. Shortly after the Vulture's arrest, the residual energy signatures from Peter's power spikes reach the right sensors. The Empire recognizes the specific kinetic output of their own genetics. They don't send an army, they send one person. In this timeline, Nolan Grayson isn't Mark's dad. He's a high-ranking Viltrumite commander assigned to investigate the anomaly in Sector 4. Peter is sitting on the edge of the Chrysler building, eating a sandwich and texting MJ. His spider sense suddenly flares harder than it ever has fired in his entire life. It isn't warning him about a mugger or a falling piece of debris. It's screaming at him that an apex predator just entered his airspace. Before Peter can even turn around, a sonic boom shatters the glass of every surrounding skyscraper. A man in a red and white uniform drops out of the sky and lands silently right next to him. Nolan looks the kid up and down. "You're Richard Spawn," he says. "I can smell the defect in your blood. You're half human." Peter drops his sandwich. "Who are you?" Nolan hovers in midair. "I am Omni-Man. I'm a Viltrumite. And judging by the fact that you're wearing a costume and eating processed garbage on a roof, Richard didn't live long enough to teach you what you actually are." This is the moment Peter's entire world shatters. Nolan doesn't soften a single syllable. He explains the Viltrumite Empire. He explains how they expand across the galaxy, cleansing weak planets, bringing order through violence. He tells Peter the truth about his father, that Richard was one of their best soldiers, that he was assigned to Earth, spent too long amongst the humans, and made the mistake of choosing them over the Empire. That the execution squad they sent wasn't personal, it was simply procedure. "You aren't a spider, boy," Nolan says. "You're a Viltrumite. You have the potential to live for thousands of years. You could snap this entire city in half with your bare hands. Why are you wasting your time stopping petty thieves?" Peter stares at him. He thinks about Aunt May. He thinks about MJ's face and Ned's laugh. "Because it's the right thing to do," Peter says, his voice shaking. Nolan actually laughs. "Human morality is a disease. It makes you weak. The Empire is coming to this planet, Peter. We will take it. We will civilize it. I am giving you one chance. Reject this human identity. Return with me to Viltrum. Learn how to be a conqueror. Or stay here and die with the rest of these insects." Peter doesn't hesitate. He shoots a web directly at Nolan's chest. "Get off my planet." Nolan reaches down, grabs the webbing, and snaps it like a thread. He looks at Peter with something close to disappointment. "You'll learn. I'll be back when the invasion begins. Let's see if your human friends are still alive when the dust settles." He shoots straight up, breaks the sound barrier, and disappears into the atmosphere in about 2 seconds. Peter is left alone on the roof, terrified, holding half of a sandwich, knowing for the first time in his life that the threat heading for Earth is something really dangerous. This one requires everything. Before the Viltrumite Empire can mount their invasion, the universe decides to have its own crisis. When the Black Order hits New York in Avengers Infinity War, Peter is on the school bus watching a massive Q-ship block out the sun over Manhattan. His spider sense is going absolute haywire. He's off the bus and in the suit before the bus even stops moving. He joins the fight with Iron Man and Doctor Strange, but Peter has already met Nolan. He knows what he's actually capable of now. He stops holding back quite so much. When Cull Obsidian swings his hammer at Iron Man, Peter doesn't just catch the weapon. He punches Cull Obsidian dead in the chest. The alien brute, who is enormous, ancient, and built for war, gets sent flying 4 city blocks, crashing through 3 office buildings before landing unconscious in a pile of rubble. Tony stares at Peter for a long moment. This is what he'd been afraid of since Germany. He'd known something was different about this kid. He just managed to convince himself it was manageable. He's no longer convinced. "Kid, what did you just do?" "I've been working out, Mr. Stark," Peter says. When Ebony Maw captures Doctor Strange and climbs into space, Peter grabs onto the ship. The air thins. Then it disappears entirely. In the original timeline, Peter passes out and needs the iron spider suit to survive the vacuum. Viltrumites can hold their breath for weeks. They can survive in open space. Peter clings to the hull, completely conscious, watching the Earth shrink beneath him. He watches Queens disappear into the blue. In the back of his mind, he has a thought. If Nolan shows up while this is happening, while Tony and Strange are chasing a comet across the solar system, there's nobody left to stop him. He ignores it for now. He focuses. Tony arrives. Peter climbs into the ship, and Tony stares at him, confused and shocked. They retrieve Doctor Strange immediately. It's no problem in this timeline. They travel to Titan to confront Thanos. And here is where the power dynamic of the entire MCU shifts. Thanos is one of the most dangerous beings alive. He's ruthless, ancient, and a military mind that's been sharpened across thousands of conquests. But he has never once fought a Viltrumite combined with a precognitive spider sense. The battle on Titan begins. The Avengers execute their plan to pull the gauntlet off. Thanos breaks free and starts tearing through the team, knocks out Drax, destroys Tony's armor, cuts through Strange's constructs like wet paper. He steps forward, raises the Infinity Gauntlet. He's going to crush Tony's skull. Peter moves, not on a web. He launches himself through the air at Viltrumite speed, breaking the sound barrier, and slams directly into Thanos. The kinetic force of a Viltrumite hitting at Mach 3 hits Thanos like a meteor strike. Thanos is thrown backward into the wreckage of a Titan starship. He stands up, touches his lip, looks at the blood on his fingers. A teenager in a spandex suit just drew blood from the Mad Titan. For the first time in 1,000 years of war, Thanos changes his plans mid-fight. The first exchange, Peter dodges. He's inside Thanos' guard before the gauntlet finishes its arc. The second exchange, Peter delivers a right hand that sends a shockwave rippling across the ruins of Titan. The third, the fourth, the fifth. Thanos tries to adapt, tries to find the gap, tries every counter in a millennium of combat experience. Peter's spider sense sees all of it before it happens. 5 exchanges later, Thanos has not landed a clean hit. He uses the Reality Stone. The ground beneath Peter warps, wrapping around his legs, trapping him in solid bedrock. Before Peter can rip himself free, the Space Stone activates, and the gravity around Peter's body multiplies. Thousands of tons of atmospheric pressure crush down on him from every direction. Even if Viltrumite needs leverage to fight, Peter is pinned, compressed, and he's totally done. Peter is strong, but remember, he still doesn't have much combat experience. At the end of the fight, he gets outwitted by Thanos. Thanos gets the Time Stone. He goes to Earth. He snaps his fingers. On Titan, Peter watches Tony's team start to dissolve. He looks down at his own hands. Viltrumite DNA is resilient, extraordinarily resilient. It fights the Infinity Stones, regenerating constantly, refusing erasure, burning itself out in the process. He collapses into Tony's arms. It feels like he's being deleted from the inside. "Mr. Stark," Peter gasps. His healing factor is turning itself inside out to keep him here. "I don't want to go." But 6 stones is 6 stones. This was the will of Thanos. Eventually, the Viltrumite genetics fail. Peter Parker turns to ash. Tony Stark is alone on a dead world. The only reason Thanos wins this fight is because Peter is still mentally holding back. He hasn't seen Tony Stark die yet. He hasn't seen what Thanos can really do. In fact, Thanos winning is the catalyst for what comes next. In any other scenario, Spider Viltrumite should win. Even with Thanos having 4 Infinity Stones, MCU Thanos is much weaker, but due to Peter's inexperience, Thanos has the upper hand. 5 years later, the blip reverses. Peter comes back. He fights in the Battle of Earth. He watches Tony Stark put on the gauntlet and erase Thanos and his entire army from existence. And then he watches Tony die for it. In the aftermath, Peter is destroyed. He lost his mentor. He lost 5 years. He's still 17 in a world that aged around him. And he's been carrying the Viltrumite secret entirely by himself since that afternoon on the Chrysler Building. He goes back to high school, tries to rebuild normal with Ned and MJ, tries to sleep, tries not to think about the worship that he knows is coming. MJ figures it out the way MJ figures everything out, by paying attention when everyone else doesn't. She corners him on the roof of his apartment building one evening. In this timeline, MJ finds out sooner, due to Peter's differing behavior because of his Viltrumite genetics. "Peter, you're acting weird. What aren't you telling me?" Peter breaks. He tells her everything. The Viltrumite Empire, Nolan's visit, he's Spider-Man, the entire Avengers fight, what his father actually was. He expects her to step back. He expects her to look at him like he's crazy. MJ walks over. She grabs his hand. She opens her mouth to say something. Peter's spider sense flickers. Just for a moment. It's so faint that he almost misses it. It's like a distant frequency, a signal from something very far away. He shakes his head. Probably nothing. "What were you going to say?" he asks. She reaffirms him that she's there for him, that she's proud of him, that he was never really a good liar. After that, Peter gets 3 weeks of normal. Then the sky changes. A month after Tony Stark's funeral, the sky above New York City darkens. A massive Viltrumite warship descends through the clouds and hovers directly over Manhattan. It doesn't fire a single weapon. 3 figures drop from it, landing in the middle of Central Park. The 3 characters are Nolan, General Craig, and a female Viltrumite warrior named Anissa. The remaining Avengers mobilize. Sam Wilson as the new Captain America, Doctor Strange, Smart Hulk, Captain Marvel. They arrive on scene and form a line. General Craig steps forward. He looks at them like he's done this a million times. "Your strongest warriors are dead. Your planet is unprotected. By the decree of the Viltrumite Empire, Earth is now our property. Surrender unconditionally, and you will be allowed to serve. Resist, and we will erase your cities within hours." Before Sam can respond, a blur drops out of the sky and lands perfectly between the Avengers and the Viltrumites. Peter Parker stands up. He isn't wearing the Iron Spider suit. He's in his original suit, the handmade one. The choice is deliberate, and everyone who understands it can see exactly what he's saying. Nolan looks at him. "I told you I'd be back. Have you finally accepted reality? Are you ready to put on the uniform and claim your birthright?" Peter locks eyes with them. "Actually, I thought you'd be back sooner. Thanks for giving me time to prepare." Anissa laughs. She steps forward, looking at Peter like he's something mildly interesting on the pavement. "You let a half-breed talk to you like that, Nolan? Let me kill him. It'll be a good lesson for the locals." Nolan tells her to wait. He responds to Peter. "We were gonna be here sooner, but Thanos destroyed half of our population. We were already sparse, a mere 50 Viltrumites, and after that, only 25 of us remained. Drag was turned into dust. For 5 years, Viltrum was chaos. We could have used you, Peter. Anissa yells at Nolan. What are you doing? There's no point explaining this to him. She ignores the Avengers entirely. She lunges directly at Peter, fist pulled back, aiming to punch straight through his chest. But Peter isn't just a Viltrumite. He has the spider sense. He senses her trajectory perfectly. He doesn't block. He ducks completely under her punch, plants his hands in the grass, and delivers a double kick directly into Anissa's stomach. The shockwave knocks every surrounding tree flat. Anissa skips backwards across Central Park, leaving a trench in the ground. General Craig's eyes go wide. This isn't a weak half-breed. The Avengers stare at the kid from Queens. He just physically overpowered a cosmic conqueror in about 2 seconds. I'm not asking nicely, Peter says. Get off Earth. What follows is the most violent physical confrontation in the history of the MCU. It makes the Battle of Wakanda look like a parking ticket. Craig and Nolan launch themselves at Peter simultaneously. The Avengers try to assist, and immediately discover they are outclassed by Viltrumite combat physics. Hulk swings at Craig. Craig catches his fist and hurls the green giant 2 miles across the city. Doctor Strange opens a portal at the last second, catching the Hulk above the Hudson before it lands on a bridge. Then he immediately snaps back into casting massive shield constructs to protect the civilian population from the sonic booms alone. Captain Marvel engages Anissa in the upper atmosphere, trading energy blasts for raw physical power. They're actually almost equal. Peter fights Nolan and Craig in the air alone. They move at supersonic speeds. They crash through the upper floors of the empty skyscrapers. Their bodies tear through the steel beams and reinforce concrete without losing pace. Peter uses his spidey sense to stay half a step ahead, reading trajectories before they resolve, ducking and countering in the fraction of a second that Viltrumite speeds allow. Then, Nolan lands a right hook across Peter's jaw that gets through. Peter's head snaps back. He spits blood. Craig follows with an axe kick that sends Peter plummeting towards the streets below. He hits the asphalt hard enough to leave a crater. He gets to his feet. His suit is destroyed, and 2 of his ribs are fractured. Viltrumite healing is fast, but it's not instantaneous. Nolan floats down and hovers a few feet above him. You're fighting your own nature, Peter. You have our strength, but you fight like a human. You pull your punches. You worry about the buildings and the people. We don't care about any of that. That is why you will lose. Peter wipes the blood from his mouth. He looks up. You're right, Peter says. I do care about them, but that doesn't make me weak. It means I have something to fight for. He also has something else. A genius-level brain and a very specific piece of knowledge from the Invincible universe's own lore. Peter fires 2 streams of web fluid directly into Nolan and Craig's eyes simultaneously. It doesn't hurt them, but it blinds them for 2 seconds. Peter uses those 2 seconds with surgical precision. He doesn't try to kill them. His no-kill rule even extends to evil Viltrumites. Instead, he rockets towards Craig and delivers a rapid-fire series of pinpoint strikes directly to Craig's inner ears. Viltrumites have extraordinarily sensitive inner ear structures. It's the biological equipment that lets them maintain equilibrium during high-speed flight. Peter shatters Craig's equilibrium in about 4 hits. The general's flight path destabilizes immediately. He loses balance, spirals, and crashes hard into the streets below, clutching his head in absolute agony. Nolan rips the webbing from his eyes. He is genuinely enraged, which, for someone who has spent hundreds of years mastering his emotions for battlefield advantage, is itself a vulnerability. You little freak! He throws a lethal punch aimed directly at Peter's skull. Peter's spider sense fires. He waits until the last possible millisecond. He dodges right, grabs Nolan's extended arm, and uses every ounce of Nolan's own massive forward momentum to slam his face first into the concrete. Then, Peter pins him. He pulls his fist back, and for the first time in his entire life, Peter Parker doesn't hold back. He channels everything, every year of restraint, all the grief over Tony, all the fear of MJ and Ned and Aunt May. Every single night he spent holding back because he was afraid of what he was. He delivers one strong punch to the back of Nolan's head. The shockwave is felt 6 blocks out. Nolan is completely unconscious. Peter stands up. He's breathing hard. His hands are shaking, surrounded by ruined streets and defeated conquerors. Captain Marvel drops out of the sky and deposits an unconscious Anissa next to Craig. She looks at Peter. She doesn't have words. The rest of the Avengers land around him. None of them have words either. They're looking at a teenager in a destroyed homemade suit who just saved the planet through stubbornness. When Nolan Grayson wakes up hours later, he's in a specialized vibranium holding cell inside the new Avengers facility. His healing factor has repaired his skull. Peter walks in wearing his normal clothes. Flannel shirt, jeans. He looks like a kid who should be worrying about a chemistry test. Nolan sits up slowly. You beat us. You won the battle, but you can't win the war. The Empire will send 100 ships. They will burn this planet to glass. Peter crosses his arms. Let them come. You came here expecting to find humans. You found me. I'm sending you back to your Emperor with a message. Earth is under my protection. If you come near my city, my friends, or this planet again, I will dismantle every last one of you piece by piece. Nolan stares at him. He thinks about Richard, his old mission partner, the soldier who spent too long among humans and made the exact same choice and was executed for it. He thinks about Richard's face on the day he was reported gone. He thinks about the fact that Richard's son is still standing in front of him. He doesn't know what to do with that. For the first time in hundreds of years of absolute certainty, Nolan Grayson is genuinely confused. He still thinks Peter is stupid. Of course, Thrag will eventually come, and that fight will go a little differently. But for now, Peter turns and walks walks out of the cell. Somewhere, 100,000 light years away, a warship receives a signal. It turns around. Peter Parker is already on the subway home, worrying about a chemistry test.